Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. What a great lineup we have. What a great show. I think about a couple things. And, Benny, you and I have been talking on air for a long time. And what I'm really struck by at the moment is I'm struck by the people now that are coming forward with a powerful message, a message for our time and a message that used to be once upon a time, if you want to go back, as you say, Benny, back in the day,
Mhm.
this message used to be optional, right? And what I mean by optional, it would be, wow, it'd be really great to talk with someone about how to radically shift our consciousness. Or maybe we could talk to somebody about divine transmissions. Or maybe it would be good to hear what messages are from powerful channelings. We live in a world now where when I think about this and my very special, featured guest co-host today, I think about what it takes to have been on the cusp of saying yes to all that. And I know, Benny, you and I were talking about the fact that, we said yes to this a long time ago, you longer than me. But when you say yes to it, a new kind of transmission, mine isn't like my guest, Shakti Ma. Mine isn't like hers. Mine is different, but it's still a powerful yes. It's still something that enables information to be pulled through, enabled through the flow of a channel that allows us and enables us to become freer than we've ever been before. For those of you out there that have listened to our fabulous show, she is someone that channels the divine mother essence, Shakti. And this is in the form of energy, it's in the form of sound, it's in creation, it's in power, it's in force. It it is saying yes, which she has said yes to, being a conduit for all that is. But what is that? It's tender, it's loving, it's compassionate, it's fearless, it's honest, it's truthful. And the essence of it is surrounded by the space of divine intelligence, that level of consciousness that allows us to know things in a way that you can't necessarily always articulate it unless you're her. You can't articulate it, but you kind of know, man, I better not turn left and go down that street. Wow, we've got a great show for you today. I want to introduce you to who this amazing woman is, but more importantly, her purpose, her passion, and her perseverance to not let anything get in the way of divine transmissions.
Mm.
Great to have you here. Awesome to have you here, Lisa Marie Shakti Ma. And I love that. I could say Shakti Ma like a million times. I mean, we could like break out into a chant right now with that. Great to have you.
Thank you so much, Pat. I love how you mentioned saying yes, because I feel like that was such a big part of my journey, even since I was a little kid. So many times, I would have these feelings, these sensations that I needed to do something. I needed this. Okay, you need to do this. I didn't understand why. I didn't even know what it meant. And I always just had this feeling, this intuition. Okay, yes. Okay, yes, I'll do it. I don't understand, but yes, I will sign the dotted line. I will hand over. And of course, that's led me to my beautiful journey and my beautiful purpose. And it's really about bringing this awareness to everybody. When we're in this surrendered space of saying yes, our life becomes magical,
Yeah.
truly magical.
Yeah. And here's the thing I love about this. And about what you said, because you also teach people the power of enacting in their lives what you just described for yourself.
Mhm.
Um, I did a show yesterday that was a pre-record that's yet to air, with somebody I've known a while, and we were talking about origins. Let me just call them that, origins. And I thought about what happens when we know our yes and yet we say no. Now, in my life, that has not been a happy time. It got ugly. What are your thoughts on that?
I always say you'll get a slap. You will get slapped by your higher self. And sometimes those are very little subtle slaps and things kind of challenges, things show up, resistance shows up. And then other times it's really big slaps within your reality, right? And our reality is all symbolic, it's all trying to reflect back to us. So those big slaps are reflection, trying your higher self, trying to tell you, whoa, 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 you've gone way out of alignment.
Yeah.
Step back, realign, reassess.
Yeah, way out of alignment. You're totally there. One of the things I was looking at, and I just want to tell everybody, we're going to make sure you're able to get information on what you do, Lisa Marie, what she does, who she is. That's what we're talking about today. But one of the things I know about looking at the work that you have been called to bring forth in the world is that we are here right now. And I want to ask you about this. For myself, I know that what's happening in my life right now with me, like me looking in the mirror, like the mirror thing, right? And it's not the mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all. But it is could be that some days, but it's not that one today. But it's looking at the mirror and really looking into my own eyes in a very deep soul way and asking, am I on track from is this my life purpose? Am I on track? Do I need to do more? Do I need to do less? And I want to ask you about yourself and how you came to be someone who has been called to deliver these divine transmissions.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I have a program that I run, an alignment empowerment program. And last evening was our weekly call. And it came through for us to ask ourselves to be available to ourself, right? To ourself. And part of this whole experience that was channeled for these participants was looking in the mirror. So I thought that was quite relevant.
That's
What you
funny.
said. And the question was, what do you need? But like speaking to the reflection in the mirror, not what do I need? What do you need, dear one, my sweet one, my beloved, however you want to word it, but really seeing that reflection and asking, what do you need? And that's part of this is availability to ourselves, right? So that's part of how I came on this process was always listening to that intuitive hit, listening to that magnetic pull, even when it was very challenging circumstances where I thought, geez, this is going to really rock the boat, right?
Yeah.
Like it's practically going to flip over if I make this call, if I follow that trail. But I always also knew sometimes I felt literally, I say, like I didn't have a choice because that's how I felt. Like I knew that I had a choice, but I knew that if I took that path, I would get slapped. I knew that that would be the wrong path. So that magnetic pull, I always listened to it. I don't really know where that came from. It was just always that sense. Ever since I was a little child, I just knew I had to follow that. And following that breadcrumb trail, led me over and over and over again down this beautiful, beautiful life. I've had an extraordinary life. And each moment, each expression, each new path, each new turn within that road, there was a level of challenge always, like an upfront of, okay, this is where you have to make that call. And a deep level of faith is being asked of you. Right now, you have to
Yeah.
have faith. Like, this is not the easy road.
Yeah.
That's the easier one, but this is the one you're being pulled to, being drawn to, and you have to have faith that that's the right one. And every time I took that, it was challenging and then a massive explosion of expansion within my consciousness, a deeper realization of self. But just like everybody, early in childhood, I had, a very pull away from who I really was, I moved far, far away from my true self. And I always say that that is one of our most valuable gifts within this journey is that as you move far away from yourself, as you come back to
Yeah.
realize who you are, there is such a deep anchoring into that truth, much more than you ever had, because you didn't realize how valuable you really are until you lose yourself. So when you
Yeah.
come back, wow, that realization, that anchoring, and then that determination, I will never abandon myself again.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest gifts we can ever realize.
Absolutely. I mean, look at you nailed it. And part of this for me is the way I'm interpreting what you're saying is, and I want to talk about this when we come back from break. As you were speaking, I was thinking, and I heard this voice say, "Yeah, Pat, wow, you did that. But wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Like, when did you do it? How long did you do it for?" And then it was and then I heard the revelation of this. You know, if I look at who I was in 1973
Mm,
and I looked at who I was in 1990, where I had a major, major slap in the face. No, everything got slapped. I mean, everything was slapped. That was just like slapping me everywhere. If I look at that period in time, it is exactly what you described. Exactly what you described. And and part of what I want to talk with you about is this is part of the human journey. The
mhm,
human, not the spiritual, but the human, some of it's spiritual. But when we get back that faith,
mhm,
that faith, right?
mhm,
How do we not only keep that faith, how do we build it? How do
mm,
we help others create the energies? When we come back, I want to talk with you about that because some people are saying, I'm not one of those people. Some people are saying, wow, the world we're living in now, are we going to be able? And I'm saying the world we're living in now is going to open every door that was ever closed. When we come back, I want to ask you about the current energies and why this time now, more so than any other, is about faith,
mm.
but a different, stronger kind of faith. When we come back, more with my very special guest today, Lisa Marie Shakti Ma. When we come back, you're going to hear what these divine transmissions are about, what is the current energies, and how do we work with them. Also, you're going to be hearing about what she is doing to bring her gift forward in these amazing free consultations. So let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back. This is really the time of faith,
Mhm.
and it's a faith energy, and we're going to talk about that now. Lisa Marie Shakti Ma joining me here today. We're talking about a number of things, but part of what I like about your story and your journey is that you have gone through the portals that people go through. It doesn't matter what person we're talking about. We might be talking about somebody that is, in their teens, sitting home really struggling, maybe talking about like someone who is runs their home, manages children. We may be
Mhm.
talking about them. We may be talking about people that are reflecting back on their lives. Let's just call it, we're talking about humanity in a
Mm.
moment where we now have to recognize there's something else operating. Before we get to that, how do people find out more about you? Let's make sure we get everybody to your site if we could.
Yeah, so people can definitely check out my website, www.shaktima.net. And I also have a YouTube channel that they can find on my website, or they can search for Lisa Marie Shaktima. And there's a lot of free content, a lot of really wonderful videos and channelings, divine transmissions that show up in that space.
And that's what we're going to talk about. A comment that I made, and I would love for you to talk about it, is we are sensing, and I've heard this from 12-year-olds
Mm.
to 80-year-olds, an energy, something. Some people jokingly call it a force.
Mhm.
There's I mean, taken out from the Star Wars, right? But it's a common way to reflect on something you don't understand, right? Um, what is your sense of what the current energies are about.
Yes, wonderful. Well, I like how originally before the break we were talking about faith,
Yeah.
because that's a large part of this journey is about faith. The faith in what? The faith in source energy, the faith in who you really are, the faith that exists, the faith in your power, the faith in unconditional love, the faith in all of this that we're learning around love, light, right?
Yeah.
So what is faith? Because we use that word a lot, but what is it really? It's deep trust. It's devotion to trust. And this is one of the spaces that we've been so disconnected to, and it relates very closely to our inner child. So, the inner child is like the version of us around 2 to 3 years of age, when we're in this pure essence, right? Because when we incarnate into this world, we are purely ourself. We are purely the complete vibration, our unique frequency of our soul that comes into this life. And then we're taught and we learn all these other things that pull us out of that space, but that inner child really reflects that. And what are some of the most beautiful characteristics of that inner child? One of them is vulnerability. Children are extremely vulnerable, right? You put your hand out, you invite them along, they'll grab it and they'll follow you somewhere. And there's trust. Before they learn to distrust, they trust. They deeply, deeply trust. And that space is where we are trying to get back to. You can see how obvious this is in our reality, right? All of the distrust within our systems, within our government, within each other. We don't even trust the most intimate people in our lives. But where does that all stem from? I say it's like a cake. The icing on the cake is the government and all of the very, very external people in our lives. And as we start to come down into our coworkers and maybe our local community and then our intimate friends, and we keep going down the layers of the cake, where is the root of that distrust? It's the distrust of self.
Yeah. You know, little snippet I'll share with you. And we were talking during the break, and I was talking to you about that 30-year period of my life where um I wasn't the person that I felt I wanted to become, but then I became the person I thought I wanted to become and achieved incredible corporate success for literally almost not being able to read and write. I mean, I'm a kid from the Bronx. I'm a kid from the projects.
Hmm.
Um, I graduated high school because I went to summer school and the teacher was so, what's the word? He had a lot of empathy for me. He was he basically it's like, dude, you're never going to pass. And so he broke that summer exam down to two questions. And do you ever wonder why you remember some things and then some things you don't? You ever wonder? Like now I'm having all these flashbacks, that you must be bringing this in for me, right? So he asked this question. He asked, who was the greatest poet in contemporary time? Like back then when I was in school, right?
Mhm.
Who was the greatest poet? And out of my mouth came, and can you recite a portion
Hmm.
of the poem?
Mhm.
I'm telling you, I stuttered. I was a kid that stuttered. I mean, you wouldn't know it, right?
Mhm.
But I stuttered most of my teen years. And that's why I think I'm such a good listener. But the
Mhm.
energy of his question allowed this to be a safe space.
Hmm.
I now know, looking back, because I went back to him years later, I now know that he gave me a question there was no wrong answer to. And I said, Bob Dylan.
Wow.
I said, Bob Dylan. Because I had been going down to the West Village. I had seen Bob Dylan at the Cafe Wa at a very young age. Bob Dylan.
Mhm.
And he didn't say to me, no, that's wrong.
Hmm.
I passed the test. But I know that that answer didn't come from me, and that's what I want to talk with you about. I
Yes.
know that that answer was given to me because I wasn't meant to stay in high school and repeat it. Can you
Mhm.
explain that from your body of work, in your words, and what you've seen when you receive divine transmissions, when you work with others?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely call it divine intelligence.
Yeah.
So again, when we're in this space where we are connected to the inner child and we're vulnerable and we're trusting, we have a channel of information. There's always divine intelligence present. And when we're able to connect, which I feel is a large part of the inner child, that ability to connect, to, like I said, be vulnerable and open, trusting, then that information can come through. And it's beautiful. I always experience this direct one on one clients or on my online events, either one where information, they pump the well, is what I call it. They'll ask me a question. I'll be like, oh, wow, I don't know the answer to that. Let's see what comes through. And it's always so beautiful and so perfectly articulated, the messages that come through me, that in all honesty are not me. They're not my intelligence. I would never claim ownership of that. And yet the answer is perfect for that moment, for that person, for exactly what they need to hear, the divine orchestration of that now.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, when we have those moments, I want to help people get a sense of the feeling of it because I know this is the body of work that you do.
Mhm.
And I know the feeling of it. And I've had this feeling a number of different times. It seems that apparently one of the things in my life is that I get into these situations with authority figures. I ran into this when I went back for my doctorate. Same scenario, almost the same type of person, right? Somebody that absolutely didn't really want me to have my research pass. And he asked me some extraordinarily difficult questions. And
Mhm.
when I answered them, there was that same feeling. Do you know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
don't know how to describe it. Maybe you can help.
Clarity. I feel like it's just something that comes through that, I mean, for one, it doesn't even really feel like it's, your own voice or your own opinion or your own perspective, but then there is a crispness in the energy that comes through. And again, like I said, that perfect articulation that you could never form those words and put them in in the sentence, everything just so. But that energy is this crystal clarity is what I like to call it or refer to it. And again, that's through that space of connection, vulnerability to the self, to and within ourselves. I often have people asking me, how do I become more clear in my gifts? How do I open my intuition? All of those questions. Everybody's yearning for this. And I always say, well, are you available to be vulnerable? Because you have to open yourself up if you want to allow all of that information is here right now in this very moment. Infinite potential, infinite intelligence always exists. But because we have learned not to trust ourselves, we've closed off our own channels to that divine intelligence. And so, as we begin to trust within the self and open ourselves, find that clarity within self, all of that information is given the opportunity to be present through us.
And this is what we're going to talk about when we come back because we're at a, I think, I can't I can't tell you how many times since I've been doing this Dr. Pat show and then Power Up that I've said this. It's not a lot. You can count them on one hand, right? We are really at a crossroads, but it's not the same kind of crossroads. It's
Mhm.
a cosmic crossroads. This
Yes.
is my sense of it. It's a cosmic crossroads. That's why the energy of a single event can ripple through an entire energy field that breaks through fear, that moves people to compassion, that moves people to a place of relatability, which we haven't had.
Yes.
But what I know is that this is the world you live in every day of your life. And now it is time for the rest of us to get on board. By the way, I'm going to give you a little hint about what that song was, that poem by Bob Dylan. You've got a lot of nerve to say you are my friend. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Yeah, you say I let you down. You know it's not like that. So I'm doing that with the teacher. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to a flashback of the one and only Bob Dylan. And I say that, for all of you that have the poets in your life. And I do believe there are poets in every genre. I do believe some of the most incredible poetry has come from the Bronx. Uh, it, Benny, you know what I'm talking about, right? Um, I think there's the poetry in each of us. And this is a time for that poetry to be fully expressed, to understand what it is to be both feminine and masculine at the same time. Joining me here today is someone that helps others, including me, get the true nature of what we are being called to say, to do, to be. What we are being asked to share in a world that we're living in today. That's Lisa Marie, Shakti Ma. And I want to make sure all of you know how you can find out more, Lisa Marie, about your work, website, social media, your radio show. So let's take a moment and talk about all of this, not in the context of, yeah, these are social medias, but these are your vehicles for the transmission to change the world. So let's let folks know how they can be part of that.
Yes, thank you. So I definitely have my Divine Transmissions radio show every Thursday on this beautiful station that I'm so grateful to be a part of. And I have a really wonderful group in Facebook. It's called Soul Discussions. You can go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/shaktima.net. And you can find the group there on my page, Soul Discussions. This is a wonderful group where I really bring in regular transmissions on the current energies, what is currently going on, to kind of help connect people to, like, quote unquote, what's in the air, right? And help them realize, first off, what is occurring within themselves, what's occurring in the collective, where is that connection, and also giving them some guidance, some direction on what they can do to clarify that, and what to do with themselves, especially through this moment, right? This great awakening, as we call it. I like to call it the return to self with a capital S, our true self, our source, our divine energy. And just like you were talking about, what is the self is this beautiful balance between the feminine, the masculine, and the inner child within each and every single one of us. And there's so much distrust, there's so much distortion within these energies that we're experiencing right now, one of them being the energy of expression, right? Like, how do we express authentically? So I did a show on Transformation Talk Radio. It wasn't the last episode, but the episode before that, on what is authentic expression, because we talk about wanting to be in that space a lot, and we can see right now how it is in our reality where people don't know, how do I express? So whatever I say upsets people. I say I get jumped on. I don't know what's the right thing to say. I don't know what the wrong thing is to say. So it's a beautiful healing that we're going through right now in our space, in our human collective. But there's so many layers to this, and duality in this expression of people being better than other people, or people being of lower class than other people. All of this also is being brought up so that we can ultimately heal it. And potentially we're going to go through the same thing that we're seeing right now with the racism, into the divine or the feminine masculine, the inequality within those expressions. But the important thing is, all of this is actually inside of ourselves. So all of that inequality, all of that distrust, all of that
Right.
unsurety of how to express actually is here first. And then we've been, projecting that and creating that in our collective consciousness.
Yeah, I want to ask you about this because it's part of, and I'm going to probably fumble on the words about asking you. But when I was getting ready to do this show with you, is one of the things I was really struck by as I don't know how to describe it, not read about things, but kind of leaned into the energy, the body of work, right? One of the things that happened to me was I looked at the kind of wounding that I can go way back in my life,
Mhm.
that if I have not healed that wounding,
Yes.
that this is a call for it. And the reason I'm bringing it up is people, when recently I've just started to talk about what my life and my story. So when I say to people and they ask me a question, what is the most interesting things that have happened to you? And I say, what decade? And
Mhm.
so I go back and I say, well, at 6, my mom commits suicide, and I knew it because Jesus told me. At
Mm.
17, I ended up coming home one day and my stuff was on the lawn, and I found myself begging for money at the Port Authority.
Mm.
Or maybe it was at 19 where I found the serious nature of careless action that could have put me in jail for decades for something I really didn't mean to do.
Mhm.
And that wounding, just from those 3 things, boy,
Mm.
I had to figure out that I couldn't carry it with me, but I
Yes.
didn't have what you're talking about. See, I didn't know about this until I started to do this show, maybe a little bit before. What can I ask you about so that we can help other people make the discovery of woundedness, but I don't even like to use that word, but the ways we can move beyond the thing, you see, the thing in life.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, those wounds are often truly our greatest gifts, even though in the thick of it, it definitely doesn't feel such. But when you're actually able to transmute that wound back to the purity of self, again, like I said, you anchor so much deeper into that expression. And so how do we find those wounds? It's painted all over the canvas of our reality. We talk about how we manifest our reality, and there's a lot of responsibility that must be taken for that, because our wounds are directly projected out into our reality. And of course there's co-creation as well that exists, meaning like if you have a husband or a wife, you're co-creating your life with them. But you can see people, if you really start to tune in, if you start to just sit back and kind of grab a ball of popcorn and watch your life, right, become the
Yeah.
observer of yourself, you can really see the wounds. You can see the reflection that you're creating that's trying to show you, hey, what's up? Here's a wound. Here's something that you believe within yourself that wants to be seen. And so it keeps reflecting, it keeps being created. It wants to be seen, it wants to be realized so that you can ultimately heal that.
I want to go ahead and skip the break if we could, because there is a level of power and empowerment, not only from just listening to you speak, but in the call to action. And, I get asked a lot about this venue, right? The Dr. Pat Show, Power Up Radio, Transformation Talk Radio, about this venue. And I get asked about what's the vision? What's the next step for it? And I only answer it in one way. And I want to talk with you about this. I ask one question a day. I call it meditation. Some people won't give me that much credit. But but I wake up and I take that moment and I say, "Please tell me what is mine to do today."
Mhm.
And sometimes it's do the laundry,
Mhm.
do the dishes, Linda's coming, clean out the closets, but most of the time it's one word:
Mm.
more. You need to do more.
Mm.
And this for me has been both a gift and a conundrum. And I want to ask you about this because we will be able to get guidance, but most people don't know how to ask.
Mhm. Yeah. And so again, how do we get that guidance? And it's wonderful that you get answers, because I think if people really start asking, they can get answers. one of the ways, to get guidance is, again, to be connected to that version of yourself, the inner child that really wants, that has that guidance. But it's also to not be attached to the answer. It's really easy to go, okay, what do I need to do today? Then you already have a list. Your mind already has a list of things that it thinks you need to do that day, that it will happily fill in those gaps for you. Oh,
Yeah.
you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. So you need to be able to realize, what is the mind and what is an actual intuitive hit. And also be able to let the answer go. Maybe you don't get the answer right then and there. It may come through later in the day. It may come through in a various form. Maybe somebody says something to you. Maybe you see a billboard. Maybe a meme comes on that has the perfect, you're like, wow, that's it. That's exactly what I need to do today. So it's about letting go of our attachment of needing that answer, and needing it in any particular form. But again, availability, right? This is what I was bringing in, that I spoke to my program about last night: availability to ourselves.
Mm.
What do we need in this moment? And being really available to yourself. So I did this inner child event that I want to bring up.
Yeah.
I did this on Sunday. So it was a divine transmission. This is an online event. So these divine transmissions are really this space where I just channel a lot of energy, a lot of love light, very, very high frequencies. And those come in the forms of words, sound, and just pure energy. And there's always usually a theme, like it was inner child connection and healing. And then that just comes through, and the whole event is divinely orchestrated, dependent on who shows up and what really wants to be understood. But our inner child is begging us to connect, because what is it when we're disconnected from the inner child? We don't trust. We
Right.
don't know how to be vulnerable. We can't connect to our creativity. We can't connect to our intuition. We have troubles just letting loose and being playful, because we're restricting ourselves into what is good or bad, right or wrong. That joyousness, that playfulness that children bring through. And also any kind of a connection to ourselves, connection to others. When we struggle in relationships, to have really solid, beautiful, open connection within relationships, and trusting that's all inner child. Our inner child is a vast expression of ourselves that most of us aren't really very aligned with. So that event that I did on Sunday, yeah, Sunday evening, I recorded that, and I did want to offer a giveaway to everybody that's listening. That a giveaway to receive the recording of that event. So
Mhm.
it doesn't matter if you weren't there personally. What channels through me is divine intelligence, meaning when you hear it, when you're present with that recording, it has the same effect as if you were in person. But this answers your question, Pat, of how do we connect to our intuition? We connect to our inner child.
Yeah.
Magic. That's
Yeah.
where the magic lies, is with our inner child.
Yeah. You know, I love that you're sharing that. Folks can go to your website. Is that the best way? What's the best way for people to receive that?
I had asked that they send in their name and their email address, and then I can send it to them. I will
Okay. All right. So for the time we have left, and then we're going to do something very special in our newsletter, give Benny your name and email, 1-800-930-2819. I want to tap into what you just said, but I want to go back to that high school didn't almost trying to pass English story. He asked me for two songs, two
Mhm.
poets, right? Bob Dylan was my first right out of my gate. It was easy. The second one, I got a little afraid. I could, you know how fear is, right? I mean, I'm a teenager, but
Mhm.
I remember that fear and that gut, right? That feeling in your gut.
Mhm. Got, yeah.
I got the first one easy. Benny just played it. Boom. But that feeling of being afraid is what pulled up the second artist and the second song. And out of my mouth came Sounds of Silence,
Mm.
Simon and Garfunkel. And the teacher, and of course he had to ask me, right? So I know the lyrics to like a ton of songs. That's just something that I learned. And I think it was because I stuttered, I couldn't speak. So there was this thing that I did in absorbing things, right? And I just looked at him and I said, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." And
Mm.
I'm a teenager. And this teacher said something like, you could see his little eyes starting to fill up, right? And he mimicked or said the second verse of the song. And we had this moment in this class, this exam, right? That I got an A on, by the way, where he said a line and I said a line. And, back in the day, you didn't have cell phones or smartphones, but it is an energetic moment. It is a divine transmission moment.
Mhm.
And then at the end, I said something and he changed my grade from an A to an A plus. Do you know what it was? I said, "Let me ask you a question. Do you know what those two artists have in common?" And he thought, I mean, oh my gosh, I thought, like, are you going to answer it? And like 10 minutes passed. And I said, "No, it's producer Tom Wilson."
Mm.
Producer Tom Wilson worked on that song. And by the way, was the one that helped Bob Dylan go from acoustic to rock. He gave me
Mm.
an A plus.
Mm.
But how do we know? Are we ever asked things? And this is my question to you, and thank you for your gift. Sometimes we think we're being asked things that we do not have the it to answer.
Mhm.
I think I've come to figure out that if there's a question that I'm meant to answer, there's an answer, but it may not be logical or linear. How do you help folks get to that place? Because I think that's one of the hardest places to get to.
Yeah, and again, it's just that connection to the self with a capital S. So in my sessions and in my work with people, I'm helping them to really align and connect to self. When we're connected, when we're aligned, first off, our distortions, it's like, we're seeing through all these lenses, we're experiencing through all these lenses. And as we clear those lenses or even remove a lot of them, clarity resides, right? We see clearer, we experience clearer, we hear clearer. And I don't mean we hear each other, although that's part of it. But again, we hear that divine intelligence that exists. So, in my work with people, I'm helping them to clarify the filters, the distortions that we've taken on our whole life, of all those traumas, all of those limiting beliefs that we piled on top of ourselves, and helping them clarify or even remove those so that in every moment they're working in a more aligned self and a more clear self. And not only does that create that divine intelligence that you mentioned of, but it brings in magic.
Yeah, it does.
Orchestration. I am always blown away. Every single day in my life, I experience divine orchestration. It is unfathomable, the intricacy and the beauty of it. And I would say before, I wasn't aware that it was here, and I definitely wasn't connected to it. But through my work of removing my own filters and clarifying myself, not only do I get to experience it and see it, but I get to play with it, interact with it, bring it into my space, let it do its thing, and experience that magic, that inner child fun and joy every single day.
And one of the things I love about the work that you do and that I really latched onto was the idea of people being able to experience a new perspective. And that new perspective is the thing that catapults them into a new reality.
Yes.
And, that body of work, if that were the only thing that you did to work with people, that would certainly be enough because it is a powerful, powerful thing to be able to take back, whether it's to take a look at your life 30 years ago or your life 30 minutes ago.
Mhm.
But being able to do that and shift your reality,
Yes.
it's so important because we have the ability to build up baggage.
Yes. Those filters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that. I had a
Yeah.
psychic tell me. I walked into a room to do a reading once and she stopped me at the door. She said, "No, don't come in." Yeah, it's like, "Don't come in, don't come in." And I'm like, all my friends just went in, right? She's like, "No, you can't come in." She said, "Who are you carrying in the three metal caskets behind you that are chained to you?"
Wow.
And I got to tell you, I knew the answer right away.
Right.
Look, this is a time in the world where you are going to help us make a change, make a difference. And we don't always know how.
Mhm.
And this is really what excites me about not just the work that you do, but the way you're sharing the work that you do. So I want to thank you for coming on today. And I would love to know what your personal message is. What would you like to leave everybody with today?
Hmm. That's a beautiful question. So, what comes through is that you are real, but not the you that you see in the mirror, not the arm that you feel, not the face, not this body. The real you is so vast, so complex, so incredibly powerful. You clearly can create everything that you really want within that empowerment, within that true you.
Mm. Thank you so much for today. Please, one more time, let folks know how they can listen to your show as well as contact you personally.
Yes, definitely. So on Transformation Talk Radio every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And guys, I really love interaction. Like, please call in or join the chat with me, talk with me. I love that space so much. I'm happy to help individuals in the actual sessions, as well as my website, www.shaktima.net. YouTube, you can search for Lisa Marie Shakti Ma. There's a ton of information there on my channel. I'm always bringing out relevant information. And of course, my Facebook page as well.
Yeah. And this is for everyone. If you're looking to completely shift that paradigm of your life, to realize what your purpose is, your true purpose, this is the body of work. One of the things that Lisa Marie Shakti Ma is able to do. And my advice to everybody is if there's a way to help you get through that quickly, more quickly than I did, I'm telling you, folks, I'm all in. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
So much. Appreciate it.
Benny, thank you for playing all the songs, pushing the right buttons. Zach, thank you for the beautiful pictures on Facebook. And thank you to all of you. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.